Welcome to Payback with Silas. Every day, a new story, lies, betrayal, payback. Let's begin.
You're not worth what we've been paying you. Times change. That's life. That's what he told me. Word for word. Cyrus Ellington. 32. Fresh haircut, overpriced suit, fake humility. A corporate smile stretched over a spine made of spreadsheets. I sat there in the boardroom I helped build, literally. Back in 2004, when Knox Systems was a rented two-room office over a pawn shop in downtown Charlotte. I was the third hire. I'd been here longer than the furniture. And now Cyrus, with his startup swagger and venture capital vocabulary, decided I was inefficient. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't remind him of the countless nights I stayed behind after the janitors left, or the clients I personally kept from walking out the door during the 2009 crash. I just stared at the bastard. My salary was being slashed. 40%. Effective immediately. You're lucky we're keeping you at all, he added, like he was doing me a favor. I could hear my pulse in my ears. Not because of the money. Because of the disrespect. There's a moment in a man's life when his pride stands up taller than his fear. That moment found me then and there. I smiled. That's life? I repeated. He nodded, smug. Maybe. But it's not mine anymore. I stood up, reached for the resignation letter I'd written 2 nights earlier, just in case. I'd seen the signs. The coffee meetings I wasn't invited to. The closed-door huddles. The sudden push to modernize. He looked confused. You're quitting? I'm leaving, I corrected him. Quitting is what people do when they give up. I'm not quitting. I'm choosing. Everett, let's not make this dramatic. We can work something out. But I was already walking out. I stepped into the elevator with a strange sense of peace. I wasn't scared. I was free. My hands shook a little. Not from nerves, but from adrenaline. I was a man who had just jumped without a parachute, and realized he'd rather build wings on the way down than stay trapped in a burning plane. The truth was, I'd been building those wings in secret for months. Late nights. Quiet calls. Research. Planning. All while smiling through board meetings like a loyal soldier. But loyalty goes both ways. And when it breaks on their end first, you owe them nothing. That night I told my wife, Dana. She looked at me like she was seeing the man she married again. You're really doing it? She asked. Yeah, I said. No more excuses. No more begging for scraps from boys who never built a damn thing in their lives. She smiled. Well, she said, let's show them what they just lost. I didn't sleep that night. I drafted the name on a napkin. Knox and Vanguard. I liked the sound of it. Next morning, I called the first client. 1 down. 9 to go. There's something sacred about starting from zero. It's terrifying, but it's honest. No politics, no middle managers, no passive-aggressive emails CCING 5 departments. Just you, your gut, and what you're willing to risk. I cleared out a dusty backroom in an old textile building near South End, Charlotte. Used to be a sewing mill back in the 70s. Now, it was mine. Rent was cheap, the walls were cracked, and the ceiling fan made a noise like it was haunted, but it was freedom. And freedom makes its own kind of music. I brought in a folding table, an aging MacBook, and the worn leather chair I'd sat in for the last 10 years. That chair had seen better days. So had I. But we were still standing. The first week was brutal. I made calls from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., every damn day. Cold leads, warm leads, ghosts from the past, some of them surprised to hear my voice. A few thought I'd been fired. No, I said. I walked. Some didn't return my calls. Some listened out of courtesy. But then there were the others. Clients who remembered that I was the one who answered the phone at 11 p.m. Who fought tooth and nail to save them money. Who never passed the blame, even when it wasn't mine to carry. One by one, they started saying the same thing. If you're starting something, we want in. That was the fuel. That was the spark. By the end of week 2, I had 4 contracts signed. Not promises. Not maybes. Ink on paper. I hired my first contractor by the end of the month. A quiet genius named Juno Patel. She used to work in analytics over at Riven Technologies before their merger flushed all the talent out. Juno worked like she had something to prove. So did I. We barely spoke, but we got things done. Some nights, I'd find her asleep on the keyboard at 2 a.m. I'd drop off a cup of coffee. No words. Just respect. That little office started to breathe. It pulsed. It grew. And we didn't need ping-pong tables or kombucha bars to do it. We were building something real. Something earned. And then came the phone call. One I wasn't expecting. From Lennox Grace Partners, the biggest client Knox Systems ever landed. The same client I personally pitched and managed for 6 years. A clipped British voice on the other end. Mr. Knox, I understand you've gone independent? That's right. Would you be open to renegotiating our terms, if we were to shift representation? I paused. I thought Knox Systems had you under contract. We've been reviewing alternatives, he said. We were never loyal to them, Mr. Knox. We were loyal to you. 3 days later, their signature was on my desk. 26% of Knox Systems' annual revenue, gone in one blow. I didn't gloat. I didn't post it online. I didn't send any petty texts. I just looked up at the exposed ceiling and whispered, "Let the fire spread." The news hit them like a brick through a stained glass window. Lennox Grace had officially pulled out of Knox Systems and signed with me. A quiet shift, but in this industry? Word travels faster than light. By Tuesday morning, I had 3 missed calls from unknown numbers. By Wednesday, an email from Cyrus Ellington himself, subject line, "Coffee?" I didn't answer. Let him stew. Let him feel that hollow echo I felt the day he sat across from me and said I wasn't worth my own salary. Let him taste the absence. Thursday afternoon, I finally picked up. "Everett," he started, tone light, too light. "We should talk." "About what?" "Well," here it came. "There's been some confusion around Lennox Grace. We thought maybe there was room for collaboration. Or even integration. Maybe even re-onboarding?" I could hear it, the panic, carefully disguised behind business speak. He was bleeding. And he knew exactly where the cut had come from. "Cyrus," I said calmly, "you remember what you told me last month?" Silence. Then, "What do you mean?" "You said you're not worth what we've been paying you. That's life. Remember now?" "Everett, I was under pressure. I didn't mean." "You were right." I cut him off. "That was life. But this?" I smiled. "This is mine." 2 weeks later, another client jumped ship. Then another. By the end of Q1, Knox and Vanguard had absorbed nearly half of Knox Systems' high-tier portfolio. They tried to counter. Price cuts. Promotional campaigns. Free consultations. But people remember how you make them feel. And Cyrus? He made everyone feel like a spreadsheet. The thing about building something from scratch, your hands never forget the shape of it. And the people you build it with? If you treat them right, they don't leave when the winds change. They anchor you. I hired my old assistant, Kelly Rye, who'd left Knox Systems 6 months after I did. She walked into my office with tears in her eyes. "I didn't know if you'd want me." "You were never the problem," I said. "You were the soul." One day, about a month later, I got a text from a former colleague. "You saw this?" Attached, a link to an article. "Knox Systems lays off 40% of staff amid revenue crisis." And Cyrus? He'd stepped down. Some consultant CEO replaced him. The kind that's brought in to stabilize operations when the ship is already halfway underwater. I didn't celebrate. I didn't post a smug status or clink glasses in some rooftop bar. Because this was never about revenge. It was about reclaiming something they forgot I had. Worth. Knox Systems still exists. A shadow. A name with no heart behind it. But Knox and Vanguard? We're growing. Quietly. Steadily. With dignity. You don't really think about legacy when you're young. You think about numbers. Titles. Perks. You chase success, like it's something you can frame and hang on a wall. But then you hit 40. Or, in my case, 49. And suddenly, success starts to sound more like peace. More like respect. More like being able to look in the mirror and say, I built something no one can take from me. That's what Knox and Vanguard became for me. Not just a business. A legacy. My name. My values. My people. And I protected it like a lion. 6 months in, we moved into a new space, 3rd floor of a converted brick building in Dilworth. Nothing flashy, but there was light, warmth, a sense of home. We didn't have a receptionist. We didn't need one. People came to us because they trusted us, not because we had a glass logo wall. Every Friday, I'd gather the team, Juno, Kelly, Marcus, our operations guy who used to run logistics for a jazz festival, and a few new hires, and we'd do a no-agenda lunch. No pitches, no reports. Just food, jokes, stories. One Friday, Juno leaned back in her chair, chopsticks in hand, and said, You know what the best part of this place is? What? You don't pretend we're a family. You treat us like grown-ups. Like partners. I sat with that. Because she was right. I didn't want to own people. I wanted to build with them. Word spread. Not just among clients, but among talent. People who'd been burned by cold corporations. People who were brilliant but not the right cultural fit for other firms. Misfits. Fighters. Visionaries. I interviewed every single person myself. Not once did I ask about GPA. I asked them this instead. Tell me about a time someone underestimated you. And what you did after. The answers told me more than any resume ever could. One morning, Kelly walked into my office holding her tablet. Everett, you need to see this. It was a LinkedIn post from Cyrus. He'd started a consulting firm. Of course. The caption read, Sometimes life teaches hard lessons. But failure is just another kind of freedom. There was even a picture. Him, smiling in a co-working space. Same haircut. Same hollow eyes. I looked at it for all of 10 seconds before I handed the tablet back. Let him have his freedom, I said. I've got mine. My daughter, Lana, visited the office that summer. She was 23, fresh out of grad school, full of questions. She walked the halls, talked to the team, sat in on a strategy meeting. Later that evening, we sat on the balcony. She looked at me like I was someone new. Dad, she said, how did you do it? Do what? Not get bitter. I smiled. I was. For a while. But bitterness is just energy you haven't aimed properly yet. Once I knew where I was going, it burned clean. Knox and Vanguard kept growing. Steady. Humble. Strong. And I finally understood something I wish I'd known 20 years ago. If you let other people define your worth, they'll always undervalue you. But if you define it yourself, and live by it, people either rise to meet you, or fall away. Both are fine. You know what nobody tells you about success? It gets quiet. Not empty, quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after a storm when all the debris has settled and the air feels lighter. The kind that feels earned. It had been just over a year since I walked out of that boardroom and left my old life behind. 12 months since Cyrus looked me in the eye and said I wasn't worth what they were paying. Now? I set my own hours. I choose who I work with. And most days I leave the office before sunset. Because peace, real peace, means knowing nothing and no one can yank the floor out from under you again. Not without your permission. Last week, I walked into a conference hall in Boston. Tech Leaders Summit. The kind of event that used to make my palms sweat 10 years ago. Now, I walked in with my head high and my team behind me. Knox and Vanguard had its own panel. Juno gave a talk on predictive ethics and data models. Marcus ran a workshop that was standing room only. I sat on a panel with 3 other CEOs. At the end, someone in the audience raised their hand. "Mr. Knox," she asked, "if you could go back to the day you were told you were no longer worth it, what would you say now?" The audience turned. The moderator leaned in. The silence thickened. I paused. Then said, "Thank you?" They chuckled. Some clapped. But I wasn't joking. Because that moment, the cut, the humiliation, the dismissal, was the best thing that ever happened to me. It freed me. You can't heal if you're still pretending you're not bleeding. And I had been bleeding for years. Quietly. Silently. Letting people define my limits because I thought being needed was the same as being respected. Turns out, they're not even in the same language. A few days ago, I passed the old Knox Systems building. It's a law firm now. New sign, new paint, same cold architecture. I stood across the street and watched for a minute. No one inside knew who I was. And that was fine. Because legacy isn't about being remembered by everyone. It's about being remembered right by the people who matter. And as I walked away, I felt it, fully, finally. I had nothing to prove. Nothing to chase. Nothing to run from. So if you're reading this, and you've just been told you're replaceable, or that you're not worth what you know you've given, let me tell you something no one said to me back then. Sometimes losing the job is the moment you finally get your life back. Let them underestimate you. Let them look down on you. Let them forget your name. Then build something so strong, they hear it every time the wind shifts. My name is Everett Knox. I was replaceable. Until I wasn't.